All right. Well, the big news, it's news that we've kind of known for several weeks. John Heyman reported it, and Heyman's usually pretty good when he did a while ago. But Nick Martinez officially back in the fold. He accepts the qualifying offer, $21 million and change. I believe he's the 14th player ever out of 400 and something to accept a qualifying offer. So this is rare company. Most players do not accept it. Nick Martinez just kind of fell in that exact spot of team thinks he's probably worth that amount of money. He's probably not worth much more given his age, being 34 years old. I've already talked at length. I all for this. I wouldn't have been upset if he left and the Reds got a draft pick. I think that would have been fine too, and the Reds could use that money elsewhere. But the Reds pitching situation, I just don't think it's as good as people think. I think it's without Martinez. I think it was more desperate than the hitting. Just not a lot of depth there. And I'm really excited about Nick Martinez. I don't give a damn about it being an overpay, as some people might. I really don't think it is. And it's only a 1-year deal, and 1-year deals can't kill you.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not committing 3 years, $60 million to this guy. You're not losing everything. Like, he's a really good pitcher. According to Fangraphs, he was worth $27 million last year, given his exact year. If he does the exact same thing, given everything that the Reds ask him to do or task him to do, he is more than worth that number, and the Reds shouldn't even blink, and they didn't blink, and I'm super happy that he's back. So I think they've handled that situation as good as they could have. I think that people were even questioning when they did offer it, and I think Krall looks really smart right now because they just brought back a guy that's a 3.5 WAR pitcher for them the year before, is comfortable with their system, comfortable with their team, everything like that. So super excited for him and really happy he's back in the fold.
Do you think the Reds need to add any more pitching? I do. Right now, I mean, you're looking at a rotation of Green, Lodolo, Abbott, Louder, and Martinez. That's your 5. I don't want to pencil Graham Ashcraft in right now. Connor Phillips certainly is not going to be ready on opening day unless he has an incredible offseason. That's pretty much it right now. I would still like to see them add another starter. If they have to bump someone down to AAA, they have to put Martinez in the bullpen. Just what's the chances all 5 of those guys are actually healthy on opening day?
Yeah, I think that given the Reds' history with pitching, I think it's always smarter to over add than under add. So yeah, I think I would definitely add. I don't think it puts the Singer rumors to bed. I think they're still interested in adding a starter, regardless of the reports that they're not anymore, given Martinez, because they know Martinez limitations as a starting pitcher. Everybody does, and I think it's more than reasonable that if they want to start Martinez in the pen and then bring him as a starter later in the year or fill in or whatever that may be, it is what it is. He threw 140 innings last year, so he can be that flexible guy. I think he made 16 starts or something along those lines. So if they add a starter and that guy stays healthy all year, great. That's awesome. There's going to be usually somebody else that goes down. Lodolo, I don't think he's ever thrown over 120 innings in a year. Green threw the most innings of his career last year. Abbott threw the most innings of his career last year. Like, all these guys are still young guys. We have to remember that. So they're growing in their careers. So I think adding a versatile starter, maybe a Junis, I think is a decent position to add. I think if they want to go out and add Brady Singer through 180 innings last year, I think it's more than welcome. So yeah, I think those are things that the front office is still considering for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think Junis is kind of the exact kind of player. If it's Junis or not Junis, that type of pitcher is kind of exactly what the Reds should be looking to add. We also want to remind you that you can call or text 988 anytime, day or night. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is a place to get support for anything related to mental health. Whether it's an immediate crisis, simply wanting to find out how to connect with care, or anything in between, it's a 100% confidential, secure, and anonymous way to reach out for help when you don't know where else to turn. To connect, call or text 988 or visit mantherapy.org to get help. It's okay not to be okay. All right, well, some pretty substantial news rumor hit the internet on Saturday with Jonathan India being rumored as potential being offered for Brady Singer, the starting pitcher with the Royals. This was, to me, Bryce, was the first time that I saw something for India that I went, oh, okay, I could actually get behind that. This is a player that has some real value in Singer, a guy that could give you quality innings, probably slightly above average, at least an average starter. And as we just mentioned a minute ago, I think the Reds need more pitching. This move kind of got squashed by Jim Bowden saying that he didn't, because this was a contingency plan for Martinez and not that there was actually legs to this because they brought Martinez back. I don't know. I kind of feel like there's a real potential here that Bowden just decided he was going to speculate on that. and you see why he would speculate without actually digging deep. I don't know if and I'm not saying this deal is going to happen. I don't think the Reds are done looking for pitching, and if they are, I don't think that's a good decision.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Bowden sometimes jumps the gun on some of these things, and maybe he thought, or maybe he heard something that was like, oh, if the Reds don't get Martinez, they're going to go add pitching, and maybe he was like, oh yeah, they're done after that. So I definitely agree. I think that, as you mentioned, the Reds, I was kind of surprised to see the pushback on the deal, because if you look at just the raw numbers, Singer's been worth 3 times as much WAR as India has over the last 3 years, and he's consistent. He's durable. He does a lot of things really well, and I think he would be a perfect fit for this team and being able to eat innings. So I think that's exactly the type of pitcher they should be targeting. I don't know if they necessarily need like a front end of the rotation guy. I think they've got 2 or 3 guys that can kind of fit that bill. I think they more so need that almost Andrew Abbott type guy that you feel pretty good about every time he goes out there. You feel pretty good that he's going to go out and give you 5 or 6 quality innings and keep you in the game, that sort of thing, and stay healthy. I think that's the number one thing. You have the upside of Lodolo. You have the upside of Green. I think Green has answered a lot of questions with his health and durability last year. He was able to kind of pitch through some things and bounce back and even get hurt and then come back and pitch better. So I think that he answered a lot of people's kind of dire questions of who's the ace of the staff, and he definitely is. So yeah, I think that the Singer just in general makes a ton of sense, and I would definitely be down for that deal if that comes to fruition there.
Singer feels like the right-handed Andrew Abbott. I mean, I'm
looking at literally
numbers. Like, I mean, it kind of feels like that. But yeah, I don't think the Reds are as desperate with getting Martinez back, and I don't feel like they need to get that top starter as you mentioned. But again, like, if you add Singer, okay, if everyone's healthy, it moves Martinez to the bullpen. Okay, so what? I don't, the whole like, you're paying Martinez to start. I don't care. You're paying Martinez to help your team win, and how you use him depends on the health of the other guys. I like this whole like paying him $21 million he has to start. I want to throw my phone every time I see that, because I just don't. Good teams don't view it this way. Like, Martinez is a good pitcher, however you use him, and I would rather be protected, because the Reds, they had some injuries pitching wise, but they did not have a bad injury season pitching wise at all. It can get a lot worse, and if you're really trying to compete, you need a lot more starting pitching options than the Reds have right now.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's the weirdest thing that I think fans do in general is like, you get the price tag of somebody, then you just like automatically, it's like this certain thing that has to happen. Like Jeimer Candelario gets $15 million a year, like he has to be the Reds' best hitter. Like that's not the case. Like he's a free agent. Free agents get paid differently than all the other players. Like it's part of it. Like, yeah, Nick Martinez. I saw an article today that like expectations have changed because Nick Martinez now makes $21 million. Like, no, they don't. Like, he's the same guy. I hope he doesn't change a thing about who he is or what he does, because if he's the same exact pitcher as last year, regardless of the role he's used in, it's extremely valuable. If he literally, I told somebody this today, if he replicates last year, the Reds will be very happy with their investment, and they will walk away happy that they paid him $21 million next year. I don't care what happens. And I think that I very much agree. If they're really serious about contending, they need to upgrade that starting pitcher 6, starting pitcher 7, because Carson Spires, unfortunately, is probably heading more towards a swingman bullpen type role. think Graham Ashcraft, I think we all agree, is heading more towards a swingman bullpen type role. So they need to really solidify that final spot. And I know we don't want to trust Connor Phillips in that role yet. Maybe he does eventually, but I do think that adding somebody and pushing somebody down a little bit, the pecking order is a really good move for the Reds there.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I mean, if there's an injury to an outfielder and you have to play Will Benson every day, or Noelvi Marte has to play every day, you can hide those guys a lot more than you can hide a rotation spot of someone that takes it. And if the Reds are having to dig way down, I mean, you're taking your chances of winning every fifth day if you don't have at least a slightly below average option. So yeah, Martinez is just such a good fit for the Reds just because of how many pitchers the Reds have that A, have kind of gotten hurt a lot, B, have never reached a high threshold of innings. And Martinez just gives you flexibility because if Chase Burns is here in June and he's rolling, okay, then you can use Martinez as a reliever. Most other pitchers you get on the free agent market, you don't have that ability. And Nick Martinez is not just going to do it. He's going to do it and be fine with it. And he's going to have a smile on his face. And he's going to not have an issue with it. He's not going to be, one of these guys that are like, oh, they moved me out of the rotation. I'm mad. I'm going to tweet about it. I'm going to put up an Instagram story. He's going to be fine. It is what it is. He proved that. And that to me just gives me so much more extra value with them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it probably helps the decision to pay him $21 million that much more comfortable too. It's like that they know that they're getting what they pay for. I think that's always a common thing, especially for smaller market teams. They want to know what they're paying for. They know exactly what they're getting with Nick Martinez every time he takes the ball.
Yeah, well said. One other thing, and then we'll talk about the offseason calendar and wrap this up. Appreciate your time as always, Bryce. I know you took a little bit of issue, as I did, with this Fangraphs article that was some sort of prediction that had the Reds 27th. They were projecting that the Reds would win one less game in 2025 than they won in 2024. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, who did the Reds lose? Who did the Reds lose? And this is still a pretty young team. Like who did they lose and who's regressing?
Yeah, exactly. And the funniest part about it is like, I think they had the offense projected like 15 F4, which Ellie is going to get 6 F4 off the rip. So you're telling me between Matt McClain, Tyler Stevenson, TJ Friedel, Jake Fraley, all these guys, that they're only going to accumulate 9 F4 on the whole year? I just like, I don't think people are taking into account that 2023 happened. Like these guys shown that they can be good big leaguers. Like Christian Encarnacion Strand had an 800 OPS in the big leagues, over 300 plate appearances. Noelvi Marte hit 310 in the big leagues in 150 plate appearances. Like, I get it. We're a little down on these guys, and I think it's fair. I'm a little down on Marte. I think everybody probably understandably is. The Reds went 13-28 in one-run games, and you're going to tell me that they are going to be a game worse than the year before it, and they had a bottom 5 offense? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm got rose-colored glasses on, which I get told a lot, but there's no way the offense is going to be that bad again. There's just no way. I mean, just given the fact that Matt McClain's going to be healthy, it is the biggest boost. And you can say, oh, you can't rely on him to be healthy, but that's just part of it. The Reds are going to rely on some of these guys to be better than they were the year before that. That's just part of being a market-sized team that the Reds are. That's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the issue is that Fangraphs still has Christian Rowe's picture in place of Christian Encarnacion Strand, and maybe that's what's messing up the calculations. Because I'm as high on Christian Encarnacion Strand as anyone. I think this guy, 29 games, people have wrote him off way too quick. I think he's gonna have a massive season. I'm gonna say this. I think I'm more confident that Christian Encarnacion Strand will be an impact player from the Reds than Matt McClain. And McClain's mostly his health. I mean, I think that his health is a concern of mine.
Yeah.
I really believe in Christian Encarnacion.
No, I like it.
Strand.
I like it.
So we'll see. We'll see. All right, Bryce, here's what's coming up the offseason. We just finally crossed off the deadline for free agents to accept the qualifying offer, as well as players to be added to be protected for the Rule 5 draft. November 22nd, that's in a couple days here, Bryce. The deadline to offer contracts for club control players for 2025. Talked about that a little bit last week with Clay. This is a weird year for the Reds where they don't really have that many guys that actually are bubbles here. The players we talked about that maybe the Reds could decide to non-tender as Espinal, Jabot, and Fraley. Other guys like Fairchild, Legumina, Richardson, Zulueta, Hurtubise, Weimer, guys that might get cut off a roster. They haven't reached arbitration yet, so they're probably not going to be cut yet, even if they are. So not a whole lot next week there. Real quick, Bryce, any thoughts on Espinal, Jabot, Fraley, or am I missing anyone else that you think maybe could be up here that could get non-tendered?
No, I don't think so. I think everybody's probably going to get tendered a deal. I think there's a potential that you could have a Kyle Farmer situation with Espinal to where they non-tender him, but they bring him back for a couple $1 million less. I think his number's around $4 million right now, so I could see that. But I think Francona is going to like Espinal. I think he's his type of player that puts the ball in play, plays good defense. So I think he's going to stick around. So, but I think the one arbitration case that everybody was probably thinking of was India, but they already agreed to the deal with him last year, so they don't even have to go to ARB with him. So I'll be interested to see what Stevenson and Diaz get. Those are numbers that I think are going to be a little higher than maybe projections are out there. Diaz especially. Diaz is an interesting one. If he's over around $5 million, that's going to be a really interesting conversation that the Reds may be having with clubs or otherwise there. So it's always a fun one because I like to see the numbers and kind of see what their projections were versus what they got and what they filed at. So that's always a fun time. I like to keep up with that.
Yeah, but that'll all be later in the offseason, more in January that we really probably hear about that. This is just more guys that'll be potentially non-tendered, and usually the Reds have a lot more options than or a lot more questions than they have this year. So that probably won't be much, but we'll keep our eye on that in case there is anything. But probably the more exciting, Bryce, is going to be other teams that are going to non-tender guys that the Reds might be able to swoop in and get. That's probably the more interesting aspect of this when we get to that November 22nd deadline and kind of more what I'll be watching. But then right after that, December 9th through 12th, the winter meetings, that's when everything really heats up. We'll have a lot of content around that. Excited about that. December 15th is the end of the international signing period. And then in January, we start exchanging arbitration figures. So any other final thoughts, Bryce, on kind of get into the offseason? I expect this to be an interesting offseason. I've said before, I think the Reds are going to make some trades with some big league players. I think the Reds will get rid of some big league players, swap them in some capacity this offseason. I think there's going to be some movement in the Reds organization. I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a really active offseason. I don't think you go get Terry Francona and just run it back with the same roster. I think that they've got some plans in place, and I think we're going to see a lot of movement, whether that's in the free agent front or whether that's on the trade front. I think you could see some minor leaguers moved. I think you can see some big leaguers moved. I think there's going to be there's definitely – it almost felt like there was like a moment in time this year where like the Reds organization felt like they needed change. And whatever happened for that to happen, I think it's going to be a good thing. I know we have all the love and respect in the world for David Bell, but going out and making a big splash as you did to start the offseason, I don't think you can just go quietly after that. So very excited. I think that 2025 is going to bring some fun baseball back to Cincinnati, and I think this is just the beginning of it, and hopefully we can get the fans excited and get everybody back on board with the Reds baseball here.
All right. Well, Bryce, as always, Really appreciate your time and you coming on. As always, stick around, stay tuned here. Chatterbox Reds. We'll continue to bring you content as the off season continues to unfold, and really appreciate everyone's support. If you're able to, please check out all of our other great content on Chatterbox Sports, Chatterbox Bengals, Chatterbox Bearcats, Off the Bench. All the links to all those shows are in the episode notes below if you're watching on YouTube or listening in podcast form. So be sure to check that out, and we'll talk again soon. Have a fantastic day, and as always, go Reds.